Welcome to SEL in EDU.
where we discuss all things social and emotional in education.
I'm Krista.
And I'm Craig, and we are your hosts on this journey.
Hello, SEL and EDU family. We are back for another exciting and amazing conversation. Craig, you are looking like a ray of sunshine, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing as well can be. I'm just telling you, it's just, I'm like, as I look at the time, the sun is outside, I'm a little close to a little bourbon. Like, life is good. I'm just saying.
I need a bottle of bourbon. I gotta get that
Oh, little Knob Creek don't hurt nobody,
put some a
or
little into your cooking.
hey, that or a little Cabernet. We're gonna see how the day goes, but it's all good. I'm feeling tender because we're gonna talk about a little tenderness a little later. So I'm just excited, yes. But I think that where we are today, so it's like February 2024. Now, when we're recording, it will be a different temperature and vibe. Whenever you get to have the opportunity to hear this podcast, but I think that my morning started off a little crazy, rocky, and I called it robust this morning because all kinds of things were going on. But each time that we've had an opportunity to connect with some other dear hearts, and there's an incredibly dear heart that we're going to talk to in a few moments. Um, I feel like I'm getting a little bit more energy, right? Like all of that positive energy is hitting me in the heart space, and I'm really most honored to be in space with our guest today. So I think that's probably what you're experiencing in regards to like a radiance that is present.
Yeah. And for those of you who are just kicking in and listening to us, because of our schedules, we usually batch our recordings. And so we get to spend some quality time together with people that we love and respect. And it was a bit of a robust morning. So if you're like, wait, you've said that word before, like, yeah, that's, so we're trailing this through. But the really cool thing about community and connection is that we're lifting each other up throughout this day, and it just keeps getting better and better. And so I'm also excited for you to welcome on our guest. So Craig, take it away. Let's hear it.
Well, you all, it is exciting. You can turn on a little Otis Red and try a little tenderness in the background. You might even decide, hey, I'm gonna put on a little Nina Simone. But I am excited about our guest today, dear heart, someone who I revere and love so much because of how much they have radiated in the global space. But for me personally, I believe I'm a better human being because of my connection to her. Meena Srinivasan. Srinivasan. I'm gonna
Yep,
keep
you
working
got
on
it.
it.
You
Oh
got
God,
it.
I was trying. I'm gonna keep working on it because I feel like in pronouncing someone's name, I want to honor all that they bring to the world, and I always get anxious. So this is actually me being very, very transparent and vulnerable about. Um, I know that people want to be seen and heard and affirmed for the fullness of who they are, and their name is important to them. And so I shy away when I'm like, I'm not going to pronounce their name correctly. And I feel like that may dishonor their family heritage. So for me, I love Meena, but I also want to honor her name. So I'm gonna keep working on it. And I've been in community with her for years now, a couple of years. So it's my thing. But let's talk about Meena because it's not necessarily about Craig. Let's talk about Meena, who is an incredible leader, speaker, author, entrepreneur, activist who has championed mindfulness, social emotional learning, and belonging. Meena has been featured as Mindful Magazine's 10 powerful women of the mindfulness movement. She's also been recognized in Education Leadership Magazine for her insights. Very much a creative force and author of Teach, Breathe, Learn, Mindfulness in and Outside of the Classroom, SEL Every Day, integrating SEL with instruction in secondary classrooms. Also, Meena was just completed a TED talk that focuses on the power of tenderness and just unlocking those secret powers that in our world today is absolutely critical. And I could go on and on. Meena is also the founder of the TEL community, which is the Transformative Education, Educational Leadership, which I had an opportunity for the last 2 years to grow and be nourished in. And as I said, a dear heart. And I hope that today you just come away electrified by her incredible grace, genius, and care. Meena, how is your heart today, dear?
Oh, well, after that, I'm feeling full. And I also am just remembering back to my first connection with you, Craig, which is through our mutual friend, Rose. And she's like, you gotta meet my friend, Craig. And I just remember in that one meeting, we got to really touch the kind of depth that you don't usually do in a first time meeting with someone. And I'd invited you to think about being part of our TEL community, and you answered the call and are such a beloved member of our community. And this is kind of mutual love admiration society here, as also as I'm getting to know Krista and just really feeling a lot of joy. And I can in my body, just feeling a lot of warmth, just being in space and being in community with you both.
Mhm. All right, so we're done. All right, no, just joking. Oh my God. So, Meena, I had an opportunity to see your TED Talk, which is already, I mean, was just released last month and is already at almost 500,000 views. And you talk about the secret powers of tenderness. And I know that you have such a global footprint. I'm curious for you where we are today, 2024, kind of top of the year. Um, what made you decide that you wanted to actually spend some time really having us do a deeper examination of tenderness? Um, yeah, what centered you on that being part of what you wanted to share with the world at this time?
Sure. Thank you for the questions. I'd start by saying it wasn't me choosing it, that it's something that, Craig, I know you and I both share this this connection with the divine, and that a lot of our work in the world and our work in education is really coming from this deep place of the sacred, the spirit, the heart. And not to sound too woo woo, although I do live in California, but the universe spoke to me about a year ago. And it was so interesting, Craig, because I've been involved in the world of social emotional learning for a while. And it was when the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning had put a call out for submissions. And I'd been also for the past few years really exploring this, what it means to be a bridge builder, particularly, I think, with my identity as a non-Black woman of color. I really see that that's a role I feel called to play. Um, and and as I was exploring that and like working on the submission, and like it kind of came to my meditation, because in my personal life and my spiritual practice, um, had been really exploring a lot about, tenderness, which I think is, I can talk a little more um, about what I think it is and how I think it's something that is, profound, but often overlooked, and that actually can really enhance our capacity to have a deeper compassion in the world. Um, but what came to me was just this kind of like unexplainable calling. And so I remember having meeting with one of my mentors, who is a former Catholic priest, and we're sort of having a discernment meeting and kind of talking about ideas, and I was like, I know that there's this submission and this bridge, but what I'm really being called to explore is tenderness. And oftentimes we're called to explore what we need most, right?
Mm,
Just like that saying of like, we teach, we teach what we need to learn most. And um, it kind of took me on this journey of really becoming intimate with what this quality is. And I found that, I mean, I personally think that tenderness is quite magical because it is somatic, it is embodied. Like, so just play along with me right now. Just take a moment, take a breath, and bring to mind just something that softens you into a feeling of tenderness. It might be a pet, an elder, a scene from nature, a child, whatever it is. Just touch into that. What are you feeling, and where in your body do you feel it? And if your eyes are closed, you can gently open them. But I'm just curious, and maybe this could be a starting point for us to kind of dig a little deeper and explore, because, this is all this tenderness kind of exploration is from my living lab. And I am working with an emotion scientist, and we are trying to do some deeper research and develop a conceptual model around this. But I'm just curious, Krista and Craig, like, what comes up for you when you touch into tenderness, like from personally, professionally? Yeah, I'd love to hear from both of you.
I'm laughing because I'm crying right now.
Oh.
Just that is like whoosh.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of glad we're not videoing right now, because I'm an ugly crier. Like, wow. But when you said that, like that place of tenderness, the picture that popped up for me was this one of my boys when they were little playing in the beach in the sand. And so I mentioned that Long Beach Island is really important to me because that's where we have family memories. And my kids are older, 19, and my oldest is 22, my middle will be 19 next week. And I'm like, wow, like that just was everything for me, that moment. And that I have a black and white picture of them at like ages 2 and 4.5 playing in the sand. Thank you. It's a good cry. It's like a good.
Yeah. Well, let's stick with this. So, and then we're going to move on to Craig, but I want to explore this a little more with you. So you touched on your boys who are now older. It brought up these feelings. You said it was a good cry, but tell me more, like, what were you feeling in your body? What do you think was happening internally for you as you were touching into tenderness?
I think I personally felt like a tightening in my chest a little bit, because it was such a magical moment, and I hope that I valued it as much as I do now in that moment. And then just the pride that comes with seeing people that you've created and nurtured grow up to be amazing human beings. And I would like to say that I think that they have tender hearts, and that's what I want out into the world, like to perpetuate that.
Yeah. So in this, like, less than 1 minute exercise, invitation, experience, I'm trying to kind of, like, I often say, like, what's the song underneath your sharing? And what I'm hearing is this sense of time, perhaps even like the impermanence. Your boys are older, they were young, and it's like this there's a depth, there's a texture, there's a quality that is not in the head, that is in the body. I think that tenderness elicits, that puts us in touch with our humanity. And I feel like, Craig, you're like, well, how did you come up? I was like, I don't know. I didn't come up with this. The universe told me to explore this, but we have lost touch with our humanity. And I think these tender moments, they bring us back into, like, the depth of what it means to be alive, which isn't, all good. It isn't all bad. It's life. It's we often say in transformative education leadership, the 10,000 joys and the 10,000 sorrows. And so for me, just hearing you and experiencing you, like, drop into a deep place in a short time, I feel like there's just some great power in that, because we also are, like, conditioned not to feel, right? We're like moving through our day. And I'm also curious, Kristen, we'll come back to you after we explore a little bit with Craig. Just what are the implications to even explore a little bit from our lens as educators around tenderness. Like what could be the implications of that? So now we're going to move on to my brother Craig. And I'll let you think for a little bit. But Craig, what came up for you? What came up for you?
I thought about something that you mentioned in the TEDx, just about the fierceness of safety. And you gave this really great illustration of being held. And what I experienced was like warmth in my shoulders and just around my chest. Um, and I could feel like a hand rub across my face, my ears, which is, a very sensitive space, but also like the crest of the back of my head, which for me just said everything is okay. And that hand represented different, and it's interesting, like women who have done that for me from, childhood, birth, my mom, to even to the late stages of my adulthood. And everything about that action is reassurance and safety. And so that's what came over me as we went through the experience.
Yeah, the sense of I like how you use the word fear, the fierce tenderness, this sense of being protective of it there, it seemed like there was a maternal quality that it evoked this feeling of feeling held and these women that were holding you and nurturing you. And it's so interesting, right? Because this is something that and I say in the talk, like when you search tenderness in scientific publications, almost all the references have to do with meat tenderizers or physical pain. But throughout history, across cultures, this nurturing love, I think the human species, it's our survival depends on it. And at a time when um, it seems really hard to give people grace, and at a time where there's so much division, and a time where there's such a longing for belonging, like another kind of origin story of this talk and of sort of this, what feels like the next chapter of my work in the world around, focused on tenderness. I was one of my best friends was visiting. She's an anthropologist, and I was really really digging into this concept of radical love. And and I was also sharing, radical love feels very abstract, but like tenderness feels so much more accessible. And she put me through, like, she advises doctoral students. She put me through like an academic exercise in the moment at lunch. And I think what ended up happening was this sense of um, there is so much pain, there is so much suffering in the world. Like, what is one small thing that can offer a bit of a balm or a bit of a bit of comfort right now, um, to help us, deepen our capacity for courage and to meet this moment? And for me, I feel like tenderness, like I can have tenderness for someone. Um, it's a lot easier to access than radical love for someone. It feels more accessible, or even tenderness for ourselves. And even we've taught our son. My son is 5, and even now, that he'll say, "Mommy, I'm feeling tender." And it's just like everything will melt. And like we all need to feel that warmth that Craig was talking about. I think another kind of calling around tenderness too is just, I think as a woman of color in particular, there is this like boss bitch kind of archetype out there, which is like so not who I am. But it's like, for me, tenderheartedness is an even more powerful way to lead in the world as a woman. It's that sort of fierce tenderness, the loving, and it's very different from this boss bitch kind of like yang kind of energy. Like tenderness is more receptive. It's the yin. It's this, in some ways, I don't want to say feminine because I think men, like, we all need it, but if I were to think about like the archetype, I think of like the matriarch, and I think for a lot of women leaders in particular, not just women leaders, all leaders, but I think at least a lot of women leaders I've talked to, um, are trying to find their way to like honor their wholeness of being a woman and stepping into their power as leading and knowing that you don't need to do that in a boss bitch way, that you can do that in a fierce, loving, tender way, and it does not diminish your power. We kind of went off here a little. People are like, boy, homegirl's really from California. She's the yin and the yang.
This is very resonant of an observation I'm having in the environment of like women in the rap industry right now. And so there's Nicki Minaj and Megan Thee Stallion who are having this thing in a public square. So I'm going to talk about pop culture a little bit because I think that it feels accessible in many ways. And so I'm going to embrace some paradoxes here. I understand that I'm a 6'3" cisgender, queer man in this America who is also an educator, a husband, and more. So like I understand who I am situated as an observer of some of the phenomena that I'm about to highlight. So two things that come to mind. One is Howard Thurman that talks about the sound of the genuine, and there's something in you that waits for and listens to the sound of the genuine. So thinking about like situating this embrace of the framework of tenderness. Why do I bring up Nicki Minaj and I bring up Megan Thee Stallion? And I think about this in the context of the young people we serve. And there are some women who may have adopted the boss bitch mentality because there's a at least my observations are there's a need for strength. There's a need for this unapologeticness in leading your own life, being authentic, building an empire, being unapologetic for all of the things that come with that. But what I saw lately, so we're in February 2024, right after the Grammys, for those who are going to hear this podcast. And so there were two songs that, so there was a Meg Thee Stallion who released this track, and it, has a lot of what I would consider bravado in regards to how it showed up. And then you have Nicki Minaj who creates a quick rap track that then is going to rail on the body of Meg Thee Stallion, really calls her out in these very inappropriate and I feel disrespectful ways. And so what I wonder for the public square of where we are, for the youth we serve, our youth and everyone in the world are seeing these two women who are really influential business women, creatives, who have put themselves out in the public square, and we've embraced the bitter with the sweet, right? So we love you as a creative. We love you as a boss. We love that you are inspiring us by putting your life out here for us to find inspiration. But we also then simultaneously criticize, judge, and try to dehumanize each other in these spaces and spheres. And our children are watching this and figuring like, this is the way that I need to conduct myself. If I am going to be of influence, I'm going to have this legacy of like, I can't let people talk to me crazy. I'm going to make sure I get out on social media and say all these things and do these things because I want to dim the light and dehumanize the next person. I'm not going to let you just, take me out. My concern is that we may not have that maternal figure who is calling them in and saying there's a different way. Maybe that is happening. But in the sphere that we can see, we're not necessarily seeing as many matriarchs or many maternal figures as I would hope that we would, in my observation, that would say, hey, we can do this thing differently. We don't have to do it in this way. And I'm just curious for those who are listening to this and like what I'm saying is resonating a lot, and they're trying to figure out, well, how do I balance the genuine nature of what I want? I want peace. I want to feel loved. I want to express tenderness. I want to, I want to exude it. I want to embrace it. I want that, receive it. But I'm also trying to not have the world dim my own light or disrespect me?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
how do you hold that balance?
Totally. Well, first of all, I appreciate you bringing more texture and complexity into the conversation. And one thing I didn't get to talk about in the TED Talk, and I really, with some future writing, is just wise tenderness, right? And Dr. King talked about having a tough mind and a tender heart, and you need both. It's not one or the other. And when I'm talking about tenderness, it's not, you know, definitely just only it's wise. There's wisdom, you are so in touch with the situation and with your compassion that you are engaging in, what we'd call, wise action, right action. And so I think for me, and it's that tenderness is not, it's not something like, Pollyanna-ish or soft. Like wise tenderness is about touching into, vulnerability within yourself and with others. And, there is a great test to whether your insight in my spiritual lineage, whether your insight's really an insight, does it lead to greater compassion? If is this really wisdom? It's not wisdom if it doesn't lead to greater compassion. But, I hear you on, the lack of this compassion being a North Star for young people. And I think part of that has to do with, I think we always go back to the adult culture in the spaces that we serve, but in popular culture as well. I think it's something that, like, I'm grateful that you're bringing into the conversation, and like, you know want to really ground this in what the day-to-day experience of young people is. But even if they have an educator or someone in their community that you know um can touch into their vulnerability and make it safe for them to really touch into what they're truly feeling, and be that model of resilience for them, that in and of itself is really, really powerful. So I don't know if that, but just wanted to add that, like, it's not like tenderness is not like one dimensional. Like, I believe it's pretty complex, and um it's not just this sense of just, like, melting, but it's this sense of seeing, of really seeing and being with what is unfolding for others, and being with their pain, being a compassionate witness to what's unfolding.
I have so many notes written down from what we're talking about, and or what I'm hearing you say. And I think I kind of have two pieces here, in that in working with schools around developing empathy, I feel that so many teachers in my experience were like, we want empathetic kids. This is what, but they're all like Craig brought up, it's not always being modeled by what the students are seeing on television with pop culture or politicians or in sports. And sometimes not in our schools with the way that the adults are interacting with them. And
Totally.
I've often thought about what foundational pieces need to happen there. And so I think about having the ability to take somebody's perspective, like knowing that they're going to share something and that we're okay if it doesn't match what our experiences have been. And then truly listening, like a really deep listening to what that person is sharing, and taking us to that piece of empathy where we can relate to and connect to that emotion, even if we haven't had the experience. And I've often looked at compassion as being, and you defined it a little bit differently, but we're talking the same thing, is like a kindness with action. And what
Mhm.
are we doing that next level? But that often does seem like a really big word and unattainable. And I'm really drawn to this piece on tenderness that you're talking about,
Yeah,
wise tenderness, and that it's accessible.
totally. I actually think that, like, the magic, so, the whole, like, compassion, empathy, vulnerability is kind of like a chicken and egg thing. Like, someone would say, "Oh, well, you can't have tenderness if you're not vulnerable." But I'm like, but you can't be vulnerable if the conditions for tenderness aren't great. If you don't, so it's sort of like this chicken and egg thing. And I think that, they've done research on teachers who experience like burnout or empathic distress. And, compassion, like there's like in Ekman and Goleman's work, there's like the three types of compassion. Or three types of empathy. There's the cognitive empathy, emotional empathy, and compassionate empathy. And like ultimately, right, the compassionate empathy is the head and the heart coming together in wise action. And I think that tenderness, because it's somatic, because it's embodied, because it's something that you can feel, could be like a magic link, or without tenderness, I think compassion can still stay very analytical and in the head. And I think that there's some potential, and again, like super early stages, like nobody's done research on this. We're trying to really figure out like what is tenderness? Is it just part of the wider compassion family? Does it have distinct qualities? It's still, there's such a long way to go in the research, but 15 years ago, people would have been saying the same thing about compassion, and now there's so much research. So I think that there sometimes people say that without tenderness there's no compassion. And even in certain meditation practices, what's been shared with me is that tenderness is the tonal quality. So that's like the embodied state we're trying to cultivate in compassion meditation. That without that feeling of tenderness, it is hard to really, really engage in compassion that is coming from like that wise space, but also that space of connectedness. And I think for me as well, and Craig knows, we talk a lot about interbeing in transformative educational leadership. And interbeing is basically this sense that like nothing exists independently, that everything is a product of infinite causes and conditions, and it's beyond interconnection and interrelatedness. I think that concept can feel super abstract for people, but for me, I feel like tenderness could be a pathway into feeling connection, in a way that is not always accessible when we're in our heads. Makes sense.
It definitely does. And I think Craig and you, Meena, brought in another layer of it for me in terms of then thinking about the pathway to growth and success and a legacy. And so I know that and I'm learning the difference between a coach and a mentor and a consultant. And I actually have been working with a coach since last fall, because I hit into this, like, as a business owner, what does that mean to be a boss? Like, as soon as you said a boss, I'm like, oh, because I have people and they're like, boss. I'm like, don't call me that. Like, no, like, because in my head, I have this like stereotype, this archetype of and I don't want to be that. And so what does that mean? And I love what you're both talking about, like grappling with how we can show up, especially I think as a female in a space where we can be a boss, and show up with tenderness and compassion and a different style, a different strength, still reach the same goals and growth, but do it without hurting other people, doing it with an abundance mentality and doing it with a sense of humility and knowing that we need to be connected to other people.
Totally. And I think like the important thing to name here is like, in order to do that, it's like, it requires deep embodiment and not just emotional intelligence, but a spiritual intelligence. And so, there's some interesting work happening now, really expanding on those emotional intelligence competencies into spiritual intelligence. And in our program and our fellowship, I don't know if you remember, Craig, we took the spiritual intelligence kind of, but like there's a whole body of research and work out there, because I think part of being able to be a tender-hearted leader comes from feeling so rooted and comfortable in who you are and your embodied identity. And that doesn't mean that you're not going to, feel hurt at times when people question your leadership or criticize your leadership, but there is um, a pathway with which you will attend to any challenges or difficulties that arise. And, there is wisdom, I think, that comes through that kind of consistent practice or taking refuge in something greater, whatever. It's not about religion here. It's really about communing with something greater, understanding that there is a greater intelligence at play. And I think in terms of leadership and like wise decisions, it doesn't mean that you're not going to speak up if someone dims your light, or if someone's like, but you will meditate on it and you will know the wise, compassionate action. And it may look different, right? It may not be just staying quiet. It might be saying something, but it's the way you say it. And so I guess what I'm trying to really lift up here is, I think that tenderness could be a pathway into exploring our internal life. And I think that a lot of the growth and evolution for the field of SEL has to do with growing and evolving in that way, right? That there's so much happening and becoming intimate with our interiority and cultivating a spiritual intelligence. And I'm going to like give you like a definition for spiritual intelligence. It's like I'm paraphrasing from Cindy Wigglesworth, who has written a book, and it's essentially um, being able to honestly, it's like resilience. It's really what spiritual intelligence is, but it's like meeting what comes your way um, with wisdom and compassion, and not being shaken by external events. And, I often talk about, and, Craig knows that my whole background and history in the mindfulness world, but, mindfulness isn't for me about like, present moment awareness and an attitude of kindness and curiosity. It's like, no, mindfulness is like, I am enhancing my nervous system so I can hold greater complexity and uncertainty, because the world is only becoming more uncertain and complex. And we need to cultivate our capacity, like to be resilient is to be able to adapt, be ready for change. And, that's what we all need right now with the unpredictability of our climate and what's unfolding in our world.
Yeah. I'm trying to embrace the paradoxes, right? And we've talked about that at great length, and I'm going to lean in on some of my TEL learning. So um, for those who are like, this is an introduction to like, what is TEL? And we spend a lot of time cultivating beloved community, but you can't do that if you don't have an inner view, your inner being. And the work that we do is around co-liberation, but you rightfully are working in your own liberation of self in the witnesses, in a community of witnesses who are doing their own work, but we all are committed to this um, better world, this betterment that we want for ourselves in the world. And when I think about the environment we're in that feels at times very toxic, I'll speak just more here in the United States, not to say that this is not an issue that is occurring in other spaces. And I think about the paradox. It is, and I'm gonna situate myself as a leader of color in what I'm about to say. It is, I need to understand who I am and be authentic with myself first about this is all of me and who's showing up in these spaces. And there is a radical reimagining that possibly happens within your being as you're engaged with people, different faiths and beliefs and whatnot. But you have to recognize that the next person who you're talking to and engaging with is on their own journey, has their own curiosities, their own conditions that landed them there before you to have this conversation or experience, what have you. And this could be someone who is your absolute, like, they're the protagonist. or antagonist in your story, right? And how do you actually sit with them in space to still either have a conversation or move something forward when you have a radically different perspective on each other and how you engage in this work? And where, and Mina, you really pushed me and us to think about this, especially in one of the experiences we had at during this TEL fellowship. We were out in New York, out in this wonderful space, spiritual space and retreat center. And I know for folks, they're like, Craig, where are you going with this? Because you're rambling, sir. But I'm gonna say this because I think that it's important for us to think about, well, what is the greater ramifications of this in the education space, for us who are trying to lead work, who are trying to lead movements and change work, and you are really trying to situate yourself as like, I am part of this greater light and greater being for the communities I serve. For me, when I think about tenderness, and I think I don't just think about the like romantic or parental or matriarchal, but I also think about that radical love where I know that I'm in company with someone who has a different idea. I think about Bayard Rustin, who had to, be in spaces where legally folks could disparage him, dehumanize him, could take him out, imprison him, but still had to situate themselves to say, all right, we're doing this movement, this civil rights event experience that no one has ever done before. We're going to do this March on Washington. And he has to have a absolutely unapologetic belief that this movement is absolutely necessary. But I have to do this in partnership with someone who may have differences in how we situate ourselves. Tenderness for me is that I can still lean in with my humanity and yours and still try to hear you, actively be present with you. And I could absolutely disagree with most of the things you say, but I'm going to always treat you as human. I am never going to say something that's going to hurt you. I'm going to try to reflect back what I'm hearing. I'm going to engage in curiosity, but I'm going to try to reflect that back. And I think that level of tenderness is what will save us, right? I think it's what will save humanity. So as Joe Biden talks about, he has a thing about what the soul of America. But I think it's tenderness, and it happens in those moments where two people who maybe just diametrically different in their views and perspectives can also still come together and move something forward.
Yeah, preach. You said it, Craig. You said it. I think for me, it's this, it's a softening in my stance. It's a curiosity. It's a willingness to listen, to see someone's pain, even though I may not agree at all. It's cultivating my capacity to be with their humanity and to also touch into the fragility of life, because we are fragile. Like, what is that saying? The only things that are certain are death and taxes. we are fragile. I also think there's something here which, part of TEL 4.0 as we move through our next cohort, but this tenderness with the earth. And I think about our planet, and I think about all that's happening in terms of that needs to happen in terms of planetary health. And so I think there is a tenderness that's not just a human kind of tenderness, but like, I think of nature. I think of the rosebuds. I think of the tender shoots, when I started growing my own vegetables finally. So I think it's an invitation to explore, what is this for you? What does this mean for you in this moment? And I know for me, even I love my husband, been married we still just celebrated our 10-year anniversary, but it's a continual kind of like softening, coming back, seeing him, seeing his pain, seeing his suffering, being with that. And it's like almost like a micro practice, like babies. It's not something super big. Like, we can all find moments throughout our day. I think the other thing related to that too, Craig, which goes back to kind of like the structures of our schools and like our society, is I feel like to really touch into tenderness, you have to slow down. And I know me as someone that's, working mom, aging parents, young child, it's like, and I said at the start, it's like we gravitate towards what we need most. And so for me to really become intimate with the quality and texture of tenderness as it manifests in my life, it requires me to slow the F down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Had an aha that I wouldn't mind throwing out to both of you. But Craig, when you not, I keep saying but, and that's not really what I mean. I mean and. Craig, when I heard your story about what, and I was putting myself in the mindset of, or in the process of when I'm talking with somebody who we are just diametrically not on the same page. And I want to continue to treat that person with respect. I had this aha that maybe respect is not the word that I want anymore, because maybe it's tenderness. Tenderness, because I know there's a story behind why that person is showing up the way they are and holding on to those thoughts and those values and the beliefs that they have. And I'm just kind of grappling with this in my head that I don't know that, like, I could treat you with respect, but that doesn't mean that I respect you. Like that and I need to dig into this a little bit more, because I've used that word for so long. It's not that I'm not going to devalue the person. I'm just going to be more curious. But maybe the better word for me is I will still continue to treat you with tenderness, or aspire to treat you with tenderness, and show up in that space, curious about why you're showing up the way that you are. And I'm not sure, Meena, if any of your work has kind of brought around or has tapped into that.
A little bit. Yeah. Well, I think the big aha I had was like, you can't be tender while judging. Like it's impossible. Like really touch into it. Can you be tender if you're judging someone? They can't coexist. And that was like my like, holy shit, like this is like, and again, I've been on this like living lab like journey around like, what is this tenderness thing? Why did the universe like plant this in my heart and say you need to explore this and share? Because it's impossible to be tender and to judge at the same time. So that curiosity component is such a key part of tenderness, I believe. And it's as we move deeper into kind of this next evolution of the work we're doing with transformative educational leadership, I think we're going to invite our fellows to really explore tenderness and how does it manifest in your life? Is there a power? I mean, and for some, it may not land at all, but I do think that, what you said about respect, like, even if I think about like vulnerability, empathy, compassion, tenderness, if I were to like say those words, and even let's add respect in there, like what happens to my body? Like it's different. It's qualitative. Like I still feel like it can get a little cerebral. But if we're really trying to honor someone's humanity, not saying we are going to agree with them, right? But if we think about, what John Lewis said of like, the seeing the spark of the divine in everyone, like we have to cultivate a spiritual technology to be able to do that, because that's really effing hard to do, right? It's really hard to do, to be able to see the spark of the divine in everyone. And I, maybe with your listeners, I made a little guide that goes along with the TED Talk. I had a guided meditation where you connect with your 5-year-old self and you envision others as 5-year-olds. And sometimes I feel like that's what it takes for me to shift like into this space of tenderness. But yeah, I the more I explored, I'm like, yeah, I can't be tender and judge at the same time. It's like, it cancels, it does not work. So.
Oh, and then I'm like, okay, wait, I have this TED Talk pulled up and we're going to link to that. And did I hear you say that that guide is accessible?
Yeah, well, so right now, the guide is sort of like a free gift if you complete our survey, but by the time this airs, we already got a ton of data. And honestly, I'm like, I met with my research partner and I'm like, oh my gosh, we have a lot of rich preliminary data. I don't know. We're going to close the survey soon. But what I'll do is I will email the guide to you all, and it has a facilitation guide for sharing the TED Talk in like a professional learning setting, or in any kind of setting, and a bunch of different practices. So I'll share that, and then you can link that when this is live, because I'm sure when the podcast is out in the world, the survey will be closed. So
thank you for that gift.
Mm-hmm. Gosh, we could go on and on and on, but want to also respect our dear heart's time. It's good gracious. I'm kind of blushing. I don't know what to do with myself.
Overflowing over here. This is magical. Thank you.
So
we're grappling with something together. That's the sign that we're onto something. That's what I feel. There's no right or wrong. We're, as we'd say and tell our facility, we're mucking about, and that's a good thing. We're in it. We're trying to figure out this tenderness thing. So we're onto something.
Yes.
Needs it.
Yes. Gosh, so much I'm thinking about. So how do folks connect with you, Meena? What is the preferred ways that if folks feel inspired, they would love to check in and learn more about TEL, or the work that you're doing in this field? How would they be able to connect with you?
Sure. Well, you can just two websites. You could check out Transformative Education and Leadership. We offer a fellowship, and Craig was one of our fellows every other year. We also do an annual conference in New York, and this summer it's on embodying courage and resilience, and really focusing on the climate justice work that needs to happen in our schools. And I also have my own website, meenasrinivasan.com. And there's a ton of resources, a ton of guided meditations. I do a monthly newsletter that has like a tip. This February, it'll be on those 3 types of empathy and a guided meditation. So, stay connected. I'm on LinkedIn, and just grateful to your community, the SEL and EDU community. I think that social and emotional learning for me is really the vehicle for building a more compassionate and equitable world. And so I just want to thank all your listeners for tuning in. Our time is the most valuable commodity, and the fact that you spent it with us means a lot.
Thank you. And thank you, Craig, for introducing me to Meena. And I've been digging in on the website and we're going to link to all of the pieces, all of the things for people who are listening. This has just been really incredible and very thought-provoking, and I'm really looking forward to digging in more and learning from you. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Take care.
Oh gosh, SEL and EDU family. This conversation today is life-giving. I strongly believe in all the fibers of me that this is an investment in your own well-being. If it doesn't have to be for anybody else, like this podcast and all of the resources and tools and energy, this is for you. It has been such an honor and pleasure to have you, Meena Srinivasan, here with us today.
You got it. You got it.
Gosh,
my ancestors are smiling in the ancestral realm right now. Brother Craig got the last name right.
I'm raising my hands to the ancestors wherever they're at. Hallelujah, hallelujah. All right, loves, we are going to close this conversation, but we are never going to close our arms, our hearts to you. We want to continue to hold you and yours dear and tight, and we just want you to continue to stay and stand and celebrate and affirm and ashe in the light. We love you, and we look forward to staying connected with you. You take care.